All right. I'm so happy to welcome. We have a new guest on the podcast. I'd like to welcome Stephanie Warner to the program. Thank you for joining me, Stephanie.
Thank you so much for having me.
And Stephanie was recommended to me by my dear friend, Christina Caudill, who I was looking for someone for Aquarius season. It's like, I love talking to the people that have joined me on the podcast several times, but I always like talking to new people too and getting fresh perspectives. And I reached out to Christina. I was like, what? Do you know of anybody that might be? She's like, oh, I met this sharp woman named Stephanie
Ooh.
during during a trip to New York a couple months ago. And she's like, you should definitely reach out to her. So yeah, you had a wonderful New York adventure right before everyone had a hard time going anywhere again, right?
Yeah, it was very well timed and felt like just this kind of enchanted window of freedom before shit got Saturny and real again. Yeah.
Enchanted window of freedom. That's funny. That's funny. I feel like the last couple of years have given us literally just that. It's like you just get this like small moment where if you just catch it, it's like riding a rainbow, if you just get it at the right moment.
It's kind of like the contractions, right, of the Saturn Uranus.
Yes.
Like sort of for every step forward or every like tantalizing taste of freedom, we have to take 3 steps back. It's
Ew.
quite agonizing.
I know. I had to cancel my trip. I was supposed to go up to Washington in the earlier part of mid-January, and I'm an astrologer. I should have known better. Jupiter squaring the nodes. We were going to leave on Sun Venus retrograde conjunction, come back when Mercury was stationing. I'm like, in my mind, because my partner really wanted to go. I really need to get out. His birthday. And I'm like, I feel you. I know what you want. I know what you want, baby. Let's do it. And then as it got closer and closer, it's just everything. So we just ended up just canceling. And hopefully we'll go back in February. I was supposed to meet up with Gray Crawford, and unfortunately had to pull that back. But I was having Saturn transits too to my Mercury, Jupiter. There was all types of things going on. So my serendipitous rainbow ride was it was a mirage.
Well, like time is so weird right now. It feels, even though that was only 2 months ago, it feels like 200
right
years ago. And to think I was in DC as well and was in this big, club. It was like just total bacchanal and a Halloween party. And it was like this brief kind of, I think COVID's over, and this just relief was so intoxicating. And yeah, anyway, time is weird.
time is weird
Things to time.
Yeah. And I remember talking about this when we had the Jupiter Saturn conjunction at the beginning of Aquarius, and looking back at, repeating the air pattern and in conjunction Aquarius, and thinking about the 1200s and the 1300s when we last had this like epoch of air. And one of the things that I found fascinating about that time was they talked about the concept of time just changing and people getting more connected with time and clockworks and calendar and like, yeah.
Well,
and so
the most popular app now is called TikTok. So
oh God, I love that. That says something for sure. And I know a lot of people have been talking about that, like the concept of time. And I know COVID will do that to you, and our daily life is just so different. And the fact that we are doing this at Zoom, we're up on our computers so much of the day, people working from home. We don't have the same like routine schedules. And it's just like, what day is it?
Well, it's like our circadian rhythms as well, like with all the screen time and the blue light that we're constantly assaulting our eyeballs with. I mean, I've got sort of red light, blue light blockers and use them as much as I can, but I don't think we're meant to be living this much through the eyes, and definitely, just lacking those sort of communal, I don't know, Jupiterian rituals and gathering like at Christmas or through the year, I think that's a really important way to mark time as well, or to feel that time is alive, like when we're amputated from that social context of time and rights and pagan, stuff. It's not good for the soul.
Yeah, it
But
is.
hopefully we're getting back there, maybe.
Fingers crossed. We're getting
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't. We're
No
still.
idea of the metaverse. We're moving towards the
Yeah, we're still trying to figure that out. But that's a really great point about the circadian rhythms too. It's because that blue light, I tell you, I don't know if you ever look away from I'm sure you do. I'm sure we all do. Everybody's gonna go, yeah. You look away from the computer and it's just like a daze. You like look
yeah.
around and not only your eyes cloudy, your brain is foggy.
Yeah.
It has this really Neptunian sort of feeling to it where it's just like
Definitely.
you got to catch yourself. There's yeah, it's weird. And we talk about more of like going into virtual reality and living, like you talk about the metaverse and
Yeah.
whole Zuckerberg's vision of meta and like how we're gonna live and view each other in this virtual space. And I'm like, I don't know if my brain can take it. I'm like, to be honest, I'm like I feel like
I'm
senility will come early.
I'm too weary for the metaverse. I was reading a tweet this morning. I think it was Georgina Rose, but it was something along the lines of, I've been thinking about how Mark Zuckerberg is the demiurge of the metaverse. And yeah, there is something slightly alien about him.
Yeah. Well, and it is so perfect. We're going to talk about Aquarius season because if there's one sign that gets associated
Totally.
with alien, not that Mark
Yes.
Zuckerberg, I don't even know if he has any Aquarius in his chart. I know he's heavy Taurus
Taurus,
Scorpio, which is going to
Scorpio, yeah.
be in Capricorn, which is going to be very interesting for all the eclipses and nodal changes that are happening there. But that's for our next program that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing a node panel coming up here soon. So just hang in there for that. But before we get started on the Aquarius season, I want to give you a second to tell the people who you are, what you do, where you are, etc.
Well, I'm based in Nelson, British Columbia, for the moment. My Gemini rising is getting very restless, and I'm
Oh,
sort of, yeah, strategizing maybe a move down south at some point. But yeah, I have had sort of a zigzaggy trajectory in terms of, where I've lived. And I was an expat for many, many years and was primarily based in Spain. And, Saturn in the seventh house will do that in Sagittarius. I had sort of a long-term relationship that sort of rooted me in Barcelona for 10 years of my life.
oh
And
wow.
yeah. And through that time, I was studying astrology. I'm mostly self-taught, but consider I have, several teachers in my orbit that I tune into. The lectures of Achyuta Baba Das have been really sort of formative for me, and Chris Brennan's, the
Mm-hmm.
astrology podcast, that was a big turning point and sort of got me really serious about studying astrology and just immersing myself in it. But astrology has been sort of, yeah, tantalizing me since, I don't know, age 10
Oh
or
wow, it's quite some
9.
time. Yeah.
I guess, yeah, like I remember, growing up in rural Canada, every summer I would, take a sleeping bag and just sleep on the deck and fall asleep looking at the stars. We had very little light pollution. So that was, yeah, there's always just been a fascination with the heavens. And I I think the turning point was discovering tarot cards as well. And
Yeah.
yeah, that was kind of my gateway drug. I remember we had like one of those middle school, you know, when you're pretending to be an entrepreneur and you have like a little fake business that you set up, and I was doing tarot readings and like in the corner, this weird kind of
A little foreshadowing.
yeah, a little foreshadowing. Anyway, so yeah, I have been sort of my other, you know, I guess passion would be writing, and I've been sort of through the academia rigmarole and feel like I've been in school forever. My ninth house is ruled by Saturn, so
Oh, okay. Yeah, that'll keep you there forever.
for sure.
The steady climb.
Yeah, very steady, pushing the boulder up the hill. And yeah, so I've studied poetry, have been working on my PhD in poetry, and I'm about to defend next week. So that's, yeah, kind of a huge Saturn in the ninth
Is Saturn in
milestone.
and Mercury retrograde happening
I know that's making
there?
me a little bit nervous. It's like, fuck, I'm gonna have to go back and do corrections, or yeah. But anyway, I think I'm choosing to frame Mercury, you know, retrograding through the ninth as me returning to my thesis and
Yes.
poring over it with a fine-tooth comb and annotating it, and, you know, anticipating possible questions and things I will have to defend.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense because it's not like you're writing it right now. It's not
No,
like you're just
no, it's
starting this.
done.
It's a long time in the making with Saturn
God.
behind that. So it makes a lot of sense. And that's what I love about actually Mercury retrograde is the fact that we do have the time to fine tune and hone things in and discern the little problems and reroute them or rework them or rethink them or just look at something that we've already been doing, but in a whole new light, which I think is very
Mhm.
Aquarian in nature.
Mhm.
That's the beauty of Aquarius is hopefully we can rise to a higher or shifted perspective around something that that is it's important for our future too because Aquarius is
Mhm.
very future minded and
Definitely.
so like how are you going to like your whole future plan is probably tied up in completing this work and moving on from your I don't need what are you going to do after school once you get a PhD I guess you can get
What do
another
I
one.
do when I grow up? Yeah,
I know that's
well, it's fun. A funny story about the PhD is that I was, and this is quite illustrative of like the, you know, Pisces, Jupiter and Pisces, between Pisces and Aquarius,
mm-hmm.
that we've been having. But I kind of landed my, in many ways, like a dream job. So I've been working at Chani Nicholas since August, this past August, and was interviewing for that job over July, and I think first applied during eclipse season in June. But yeah, so Jupiter, I think the day that they made the decision was it was either on, I think it was the day after my birthday, but I had, you know, like a full moon on Aquarius full moon on my birthday. And I remember, we were talking about the Great Conjunction, but I remembered, you know, when you could see Saturn and Jupiter in the sky together,
Yeah.
in that winter sky during sort of the depths of my like pandemic exile in Canada and isolation. I distinctly remember, you know, taking one of my night walks along the creek and just kind of looking up at Saturn and Jupiter, and that they're beautiful, you know. I guess some people were calling it the Star of Bethlehem, and anyway, it inspired a lot of awe in me,
Yeah.
sort of wonder, and you know, it sounds cheesy, but I thought I'm gonna wish upon this
No.
week,
That's
and
that's how magic is made.
right, and so I just remember asking the universe, like, I want to have a job in 2021, you know, that will allow me to travel, like to have freedom to travel and to make money writing. And I had this vision of myself as kind of a roving astrologer, just pitching up in different Airbnbs over the world, writing from my laptop. And anyway, so the full moon rolls around and it's triggering the exact degree of the Great Conjunction,
That's
right?
right. I remember that full moon.
Yeah. So, and that was when I got the job offer. And anyway, magic is
Magic is real,
even during
people.
quiet times.
That's right. That's right. Oh, that was such an interesting time period too, because we had that double Aquarius full moon where I feel like there was so much that happened at that like almost like an introductory thing that happened at the 0 degree full moon, and then the month later at the 29 degree one, or 28 degrees. I can't remember which one. It was almost like there was a follow-up to that story. Like it was a pivotal back-to-back cycle in my life for sure that sets me up for where I am today. And so I feel like which is interesting. I love that you brought that up, because I mean, as we talk about Aquarius season, looking back to that time in late July and late August, and having those extra full moons in Aquarius, there could be storylines that are being developed upon, from all that Aquarius energy that we integrated then, especially with the Saturn Uranus component coming around, all those Leo planets that were activating Aquarius energy. And now we're at Aquarius season. And of course, we get that Aquarius new moon that will happen pretty close to Saturn there. But yeah, so there is, it's yeah. Like, what do I say about that?
Well, it was funny as well to, have Jupiter go, leave my 10th house after this kind of career breakthrough and return,
Yes.
I guess, to my 9th. And that's when I had to focus on sort of both my PhD and starting this new job. And anyway,
then Saturn's like, oh, my dear Stephanie, are you ready to work?
I was, oof, yeah, I've been feeling, my fixed placements have really been feeling Saturn, Uranus over the past year.
Join the club. I feel you on that one.
You need like
Oh,
a support group or something.
we do. I think we have each other. I think these podcasts have served that support group. But you know what? We are going into another fixed season. So here's the support now. Hopefully. But yeah, so let's get into Aquarius season here, which is going to start on Wednesday, January 19th. And we'll roll through some chart action if you're watching the video of this once we get down into the transit breakdown. But we're going to give a little overview first of just kind of like what's going on in the sky, the bigger motions of what this time period will kind of elicit. I mean, one of the first things that happens is obviously with Aquarius season, we bring in fixed air. So we're leaving the cardinal earth of Capricorn, but we're not leaving Saturn, because this is the time of year when, when we have Capricorn season and Aquarius season, but this is back to back Saturn territory. So Saturn and Aquarius continues to be in focus here, but we're bringing in the fixed air quality. So is there anything that, I mean, if I were to be like, Stephanie, what comes to mind with Aquarius and fixed air? What would be the first things off the tip of your tongue?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think Aquarius energy, like, Saturn through interfacing through an air sign, has that sort of, it does have more maybe intellectual freedom and mobility, and almost sort of like a freewheeling ability to make wild hypotheses, or to, um, put out a manifesto that challenges the status quo. But there's still something very like cold and Saturnian about its application. And it's sort of like, okay, the revolution may look really good on paper, but then there can sometimes be that disconnect of how it actually plays out when because Saturn, as the furthest, planet that we can see with the naked eye, there's like that remoteness and almost slightly alien quality, right?
Yeah.
Especially in Aquarius. And So I think sometimes like what looks good on paper, like ideologically, can sometimes come up against like the irrationality of human nature, or
Mm,
the mess and that's maybe like one of the struggles that we come across with Aquarius. And sort of like, because it's fixed air, there's also that potential sort of dogmatic or ideological rigidity.
yeah.
And
Yep.
you can sometimes have like the revolutionaries, the rebels, and they overthrow the oppressor, but then become like the
So
oppressors
themselves. Yeah.
themselves. That sort of, side of it. But, Aquarius is so essential in helping us to imagine the blueprints of new worlds and to see beyond in that sort of Saturnian way. Like, if I think in Capricorn, there's more of confronting
Mm.
the walls of our institutions, or sort of an emphasis on maintaining them or sort of keeping them solid. But Aquarius is sort of willing to climb over the wall and venture into the unknown. And so there's still like that awareness of the castle wall, but a desire to maybe see what's beyond it.
Well, I love that because, well, when we think about just the very nature of outward energy and air, fire versus earth and water, like if someone's going to venture out of the castle wall or put something into motion or make an outward reach, like this is air, this is fire versus the more receptive, internalized qualities of earth and water. So it's almost like Saturn in action versus Saturn in not stasis, but I mean, because a lot of
Yeah,
times that's what systems are.
we're more conservative, sort of resting, conservation,
I
sort
like
of
that resting.
conservative.
Yeah. So there is that, but you're absolutely right with the idealistic quality that comes. It's interesting because both Aquarius and Pisces deal with idealism, but in different ways. There's like emotional idealism, creative idealism, etc., heart bleeding idealism that comes
Yeah.
with Pisces. But idealism for Aquarius is just like visionary idealism. Like this is the rigidity of like what I see in the mind. And that's why, because, Uranus, modern ruler, of Aquarius. And, I can see some things behind that, but, Uranus is not, as speaking as someone with Uranus on the ascendant, like Uranus is
On my
not,
descendant.
it's on your descendant.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we got it angular.
Yeah.
There is, I think they're always like, oh, it's the rebel that's going to do, you know, break the norm. And yeah, actually can be that way, but it's also the most rigid. It could be the most rigid, staunch, like I am in this position. This is exactly, I don't bend. I will break before I, bend in any way. And so it's a little bit of, we just have to realize that when we're going into Aquarius season. And one of the things that you had brought up about Aquarius, like looking at the bigger picture and having the idealism with him and how that plays out is like one of the big things for Aquarius season is going to be Mercury retrograding in Aquarius and then back into Capricorn. And one of the things I think is so potent about the Mercury retrogrades this year is the fact that they go from air to earth.
Yeah,
And so
interesting.
And so to the point that you raised with the idealism and how it actually plays out, it's like, does that have a pragmatic application? Is it real world ready?
Or is it even beholden to natural law, or sort of humbled by the
I
very
like that
sort of serious earthy climate change realities, pandemic realities, that we're working within?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's going to be a big part of this season, especially when Mercury goes to retrograde. And basically, it's already retrograde as we're talking about this. There's so many things that happened right before Stephanie and I got on. I found out that my website is down, my email's down. So if anybody's trying to reach me right now, and hopefully it'll be fixed before you listen to this podcast, my AirPods were not juiced up. Stephanie, you had some things too. You had things coming up too, and I was like, oh.
I realized I was annotating an older version of my thesis. So for the past week, I've been in this panic of how did I submit something with so many mistakes and missing paragraphs and citations, and was really like flagellating myself for that, and then realized, oh, that is not the final draft. And everything has been resolved in the final draft. So I'm now looking at the correct thesis, but that
Thank
sort of
goodness.
still doubling, and it's very tricksy in that way.
It is. But it'll be very interesting once Mercury goes direct during Aquarius season on the 3rd. And it's going to be in
On
proximity
Pluto.
on Pluto. It's in proximity to Pluto, basically from the conjunction on the 28th of January, I think, until about the 11th is the next conjunction, somewhere in there. But it's like a good 2-week plus period where it is Mercury, Pluto.
I was looking up some of the things that happened sort of in the news headlines during the last meeting of Mercury and Pluto. And the one that stood out to me was the Ghislaine Maxwell guilty verdict.
Yes.
So I'm sort of curious to see if there are, further developments. I think, they're trying for a retrial based on claims, or I guess the argument is like a misremembering, or sort of what's that called? Sort of implanted memories. That's what they're trying to argue a retrial for. And that in itself is very kind of Mercury retrograde, or kind of combing, or Venus retrograde rather as well. The, whole Elaine case, Hades sort of abducting, a young woman and taking her to the underworld.
The world, yeah.
Or many. Anyway, so I'm just curious to see if there's going to be another headline or plot twist with.
I absolutely think there's going to be, because that's the curious thing about having Mercury retrograde in this Pluto conjunction, but also coinciding with the fact that Venus is still retrograde here too. The Aquarius season starts and we still got 10 days left of Venus retrograde, and she's going to go back over Pluto too. And it seemed like that conjunction of Venus retrograde, Mercury, Pluto all together, and then what had been carried out after that point up into the retrograde of Mercury just a few days ago here on the 14th of January, is there were so many of those cases coming into light. You have the case that you just brought up. We have the Theranos woman, who got
Elizabeth Holmes.
Elizabeth Holmes. We have I'm butchering it. The 3 men, the Armad murder, and the 3 men that were murderers that all got life sentences. There's just all this, there's a lot of potent judicial things that are happening.
Fauci as well was questioned. There was the vaccine mandate in the States was blocked by the Supreme Court, if I'm remembering that correctly. There's just been a lot of stuff coming up with, censorship as well, I suppose. Like tech censorship is a sort of a theme of Saturn Uranus, and that's something that we'll probably continue to encounter. But there was kind of a big furore about I think it was 270 doctors sort of signed a letter asking Spotify to remove Joe Rogan from, their, list of podcasts on claims of misinformation. Anyway, so there's just like a lot of, sound and fury and chaos. The volcano.
The volcano. I know I woke up to a tsunami advisory on my phone yesterday for all the West Coast. Was like, and it was weird. It was like tsunami warning in effect, and could have waves up to 1 to 2 feet. And I was like, what? I'm like, isn't a wave more than 1 to 2 feet naturally? I'm like, what is going? Did you forget zeros? Like, I didn't know what was going on. Nothing happened that I know of, but it was just interesting. And we think about that too, because as we speak, one of the interesting ways that Aquarius is going to be introduced is it's just a few days after that dynamic full moon in Cancer that is opposite Pluto, when the sun is conjuncting Pluto too. And it's interesting that the volcano erupted and the tsunami warning, because I was very fascinated with the tsunamis in Indonesia. The one, I think it was in 2004. And then there was a handful, well, it was like 5-6 years ago now. But the very interesting thing about both of those tsunamis is they both culminated right before a Cancer full moon. Yeah, that just happened to be but they'd happen in Gemini, the tail degrees of Gemini, and it would always have like Pluto involved. And so hopefully one day I'll write something on that, because
I love that.
It's interesting, the whole thing. I love weather astrology, but
well,
so when I saw
Plutonic, like the volcano erupting is
yes,
Plutonic, and sort of subterranean energy flows, you know, exploding to the surface.
And it's very Uranus. And you know, that's another thing too, is Uranus is stationing direct right before this whole thing too. And we know Uranus and Taurus has definitely brought us some interesting land adjustments and climate change and weather patterns and things along those lines.
Selling for millions of dollars in the
I know
as well.
Like oh my God, yeah, because we're in the market. I don't know what market I'm in. I'm like, what? I'm in the market, but am I in the market? Like, I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, the housing bubble here in Canada is pretty insane.
Is it?
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, it's bad here in San Diego. It's like, it's one of the most expensive places to live now. And you know, you're buying like shoebox houses. A friend of mine was trying to find a house for how long? She had a decent budget of like, I think like $550,000, and just kept getting outbid. And she finally got a house. And the only reason she got a house was because she was able to work with the people that lived there that needed more time to like get things out. And she's like, I'll give you 2 months extra. Like, and that's the only reason she got the house. She had to like barter with time and like it was just a whole thing.
You wonder, like, something's got to give when people are, you know, with supply chain issues as well, when you can't put food on the table, when basic questions of shelter, you know, survival, which is very Taurus, you know, like, what do you need to support the health of the body? And I think there's just a lot of Saturn Uranus, you know, contracting and tectonic plates shifting. It's
just shifting.
And it's like, I'm just waiting for I don't know, like, something's got to give.
It's like everyone that I talk to, we are all waiting for this other like shoe to drop. Like, there's just this sense of anticipation for something, for a great release, a great shift, a great, like, something. It's just, oh, like, hopefully, I don't know, but and you know, we're gonna see. That's the thing, is we have to pay attention to Aquarius season, because Aquarius is going to get us in touch with the Saturnian side of it, and is going to activate the Uranian component. And we know that the eclipses that are going to be coming for this year, later on in like late April, May, and then November, we are like on the Saturn's doing its thing. Saturn's going to continue to do its thing. But once those eclipses hit, we're in Uranus territory. Like, Saturn's still got that domicile, but Uranus is going to really be lit up throughout the year. So,
and Saturn is without the Jupiterian buffer.
Exactly.
So just left to its own devices in domicile, without Jupiter being like, you know, maybe we could rein this back a little bit, or and Jupiter, of course, will be doing its own thing, also in domicile, but it feels very polarized. Like, there's going to be sort of this very Saturnian sort of, authoritarian thing that's still happening, but then this Dionysian kind of wild bacchanal sort of creative renaissance, and maybe a renaissance of just a cultural renewal that people will be thirsting for. And with the eclipses, as you say, which are going to be so Uranian, like the hunger of the North Node in Taurus for sort of Venusian things for
Yeah.
getting back to earthy embodied reality and connection, and maybe turning away from this kind of cold virtual, very sort of ideological, politics has, its residue has been in everything, and it
Yeah.
feels like the last 2 years sort of reality has been yeah, sort of, there's just been this, we've led our conversations with politics and the sort of more spontaneous or organic dimension of connection, the commons, like we've been very cut off from that, especially interfacing in virtual realms and the echo chambers that can sort of propagate through screens, not being able to put like a human to the avatar, and that really, I think, changes how you interact with other humans. But I'm wondering if there will be this kind of enough already. We need to have conversations in person. We need to, return to that sort of more earthly dimension, I guess.
Yeah. And I think that is absolutely going to be the case. And there could be these dual realities going on where, like having both, because we think about Jupiter and Saturn and the idea of expansion and contraction, like it's their antithesis of one another. And now that they're in aversion to one another, where Jupiter was like, okay, I'm going to play on your team,
They
Saturn,
can't see each
but
other.
they can't see each other and they're both
Yeah.
doing their job. And so it's like, a lot of people are like, oh, is it going to be like the roaring 20s and, like prohibition style? And it's probably not going to be exactly that, but there are going to be some
Yeah.
elements to me in my mind. Like there's still going to be a strong Saturn,
Yeah.
but there's going to be a strong Jupiter that wants to have that, Pisces loves to connect, loves to
Yeah.
create, loves to just be carefree in the sense of like, I just want to go with the flow. I don't want all these rigid
Exactly.
rules. I don't want to like have
Totally.
to confine to this thing. Like I'm water. I flow where I want. I go where I please, like,
Exactly. I
so
Yeah.
yeah. Are you ready to flow? Are we ready to
No,
flow? We're both.
I am. All my water placements are feeling
I
very hemmed
know.
in.
I know. We're
And
both cancers, so we're ready to flow. We are actively ready to flow.
oh my gosh. Once I start flowing, I probably won't stop.
Stop.
Not, not sure where I'll end up. Maybe in South America
Oh,
or
that's
something, but
funny. Oh, I hope you do. I hope you
that's
get
the
on those
plan.
adventures. That's the hey, Jupiter be
Yeah.
carrying you places, riding
I
that wave. So yeah, so we have basically Saturn, Uranus getting activated here. We're getting settled into old Jupiter in Pisces. And what's interesting is right at the end of Aquarius, Jupiter is going to sextile Uranus, which is one of its big
Mm,
moves in while in Pisces, which we'll get to when we do the play-by-play. So that's an interesting component too, which kind of gives a
yeah.
pretty strong Jupiter hit at the end of Aquarius season.
Yeah.
Um, and we're going to feel the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio just switch over. Right, there's so much that happens right before Aquarius season starts that it
Mm,
just really like ushers us into like this, almost like how you started off with talking about Aquarius, this new reality, or like looking at
totally.
this bit different picture and like, where are we going, what are we doing? Yeah. So that being said,
I mean, a new picture is welcome at this
yeah, you
point.
like, I'll take it. I'll take
I'll
it.
take anything. Get me off this channel.
Well, and it's interesting too. The last thing I'll say about Aquarius before we get into play by play is like, this is because of those nodes shifting. This is, and the way the full moon in Leo is going to set up is that we are in the middle of eclipse season. So this is the
Okay.
halfway point, which is always very pivotal in the sense of like making decisions, turning corners, choosing one path over another, this square tension energy that is very dynamic to the overall just trajectory of where we're going. So
Well, I like just one other thing about Saturn in Aquarius as well. There's that sort of awareness of social divides or partitions. Like it
mm,
gets there are like very rigid social categories, and I'm just curious to see sort of how Jupiter in Pisces sort of troubles that. It feels like there being just very, stark binaries at play lately and
yeah.
in dialogue, like sort of you know, I don't want to get into the whole vaccine thing, but anti-vax, you know, pro-vax or red pill, woke, like all of these binaries that are so ridiculous. And it's
What
like,
category do you fit in? You know, like,
exactly. And like you have to sort
how
of
can we label
declare,
you?
yeah, and like leading with these sort of very rigid labels. And I think Jupiter and Pisces is like, well, we're all just, you know, souls in you know, flesh
Yeah.
suits, but the reality of the soul is very nuanced and subtle. And yeah, so maybe there will be like more of a kind of seeing beyond these kind of really plastic like social categories and just seeing the divinity in everybody, even
Mm,
our
I
enemies sometimes.
Well, that's hey, that is the path to enlightenment is to be
Oh, we
able
get
to
very heady.
yeah,
False,
it was like,
some
are
sort of
we going to
false.
become woe? Are we going to have a great awakening? Someone was talking about that the other day, and I'm like, I don't know if we've ever had a great awakening. There's always going to be someone asleep, and what's awakened is different to other people too. You know, like it's
Probably a
the
lot of people capitalizing on the
yeah,
for, you know,
right, yes,
the sort of false gurus will be
yes, that's true
crawling out of
too.
the woodwork
Yeah, and we'll save that for Pisces season because
for sure.
yeah. Oh, but I love that. I love that you bring that up because it's a great point. And one that I hope that we can loosen the stance a little bit because it's a
Yeah,
lot. It's a lot. It's a burden to carry as a
really have,
society.
it's,
It's
yeah,
heavy.
makes it hard to talk or like have, you know, to enter that space of sort of curiosity and emergence and flow states, like when you're worried about offending somebody or I don't know, like it's a whole thing, but
And
some loosening would be nice.
it would be nice. And I love just thinking about that because when we think about air signs and we think about the communication process and ideas and intellectualizing, et cetera, you know, we essentially have three options under air. We have a Venusian air of Libra, we have
Hmm.
the Mercurial air of Gemini, but then we have the Saturnian air of
Yeah.
Aquarius. And I mean, do you want to be around Mercury air and Venus air a little more than Saturn air? Maybe
Perhaps.
not always, but if you know,
They
if you're
all
like, what
play their
party do
role.
you want to engage with? I'm probably going to well, I would choose Gemini and Libra over the
I mean, my
Aquarius.
Gemini rising is definitely partial to
Yeah,
some
yeah, I'm sure.
Gemini chaos. But yeah, I think we've just been under Saturn's sort of mandates for so
Yeah,
long and Saturnian heaviness, and it's going to feel so nice as some of that breaks apart this year.
yeah. Oh, I hope so.
Or at least there's
Um,
another dialogue.
exactly. Like just a little something different here. But you know, we need Saturn. We need
We do.
Saturn,
We
as
do.
my Capricorn moon will tell you. You need it. But you know, what are the, you know, what is my partner likes to say, everything in moderation, including moderation. I always thought that was kind of
Moderation, exactly.
it's funny, but you know, we do need moderation. Life is a balance and it can't be
Yeah,
too heavy. It can't be too light. We got to find the middle. So,
we need the
yeah,
bitters,
we,
the
we
yeah,
need the bitters just as much as we need the sweets.
absolutely.
So, all right. Well, let's get into our transit play by play. I feel like it's a little lighter than last month, but there's
Yeah,
still plenty going on.
yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and share so we can see some screen action there. And all right. So, like, I got so many screens going on.
As
Get
you're
my
putting this up, I can hear somebody's tires squealing in the you know, the slush outside. Just
so
feels very of the energy we're in.
yes. Yeah, we're actually recording this. We had to reschedule our recording of it.
Yeah.
We were supposed to record on Mercury stationing retrograde, but that day was hectic for I actually it's funny because in the space that we were supposed to record on the 14th, I scheduled having a Zoom call with one of my besties who I hadn't talked to in a while, and then she forgot. I'm like, this
Oh
time
no.
was not meant to be. This time Mercury was like, no, just don't plan. just be.
Plan to not
Um,
plan. Yeah.
exactly. And so we're actually talking on the 16th here on Sunday, while the sun is conjunct Pluto. We're leading up to this full moon. The moon in Cancer has just opposed Venus retrograde. And so yeah, this is what we're under here. But so Aquarius season, January 19th, it begins on a Wednesday. And what's interesting about right as it begins, and we kind of touched on this a little bit, was the fact that the nodes just moved into Taurus and Scorpio, and right before the sun moves into Aquarius, like literally like hours before, the sun makes a trine to the north node that's now just crossed over energy. So there's an interesting,
Yeah.
like, I don't know, we think of the nodes of destiny and just kind of that, like, so it's interesting to think about a nodal flow right before we get into this visionary season. Any thoughts on that? Like just kind of that pairing?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I feel like I was seeing a glimpse maybe of the nodal story. Oddly enough, a couple months ago when I think there was a new moon that triggered sort of Uranus and Taurus. And of course, Uranus and Taurus is going to play such a big role in this nodal story.
Yeah.
But there was that sort of, not to be too dark, but there was the Travis Scott crowd crush sort of thing,
Oh
which
yeah. Mm-hmm.
was such, I was, it was really disturbing, but I couldn't look away somehow. It just felt like this really, like these, I don't know, submerged or scorpionic forces took over this crowd and it became its own sort of, like there was this huge cathartic but kind of deadly riptide that went through that crowd and sort of, sort of being crushed and very underworldy. And anyway, I think this nodal story will have these sort of explosions of release, sort of emotional release, collective. We've been under so much for the past 2 years, and I think we might begin to have these moments of just sort of releasing the grief of,
Mm.
the pandemic, and or just sort of, yeah, like climate change is not going anywhere, just finding, yeah, like that sort of howl of rage, but also bewilderment. I think there's going to be a lot of guttural sort of animal sort of outcries or things that need to be vocalized,
Mm.
both personally and within the collective.
I love that image because when I think it's funny because my partner who's a Capricorn, like I feel like when he has a lot of tension built up and like something's got to shift there, what needs to happen is like a lot of times we'll like driving, he'll like roll down the window and just scream, like the primal scream. And I
Yeah.
like to me, like having the North Node and the Sun trine at the final degrees of Earth signs does seem very primal and animalistic in a way where it's just like you have to like just get it out of your body, like, oh, I gotta, I might have to just scream, just in a cathartic way to like enter into like a new headspace or clearing your mind, or like, I just have to let this go. I see where this is going. I got a lot to tackle ahead of me. We're in all these retrogrades. We're getting still in Saturn territory, but there just might need to be like just kind of like it'd be a great yoga day. It'd be a great
Oh,
nature walk
totally. Like
day.
Kundalini yoga or something, or
Yes.
just getting out in nature and plunging your hands into the soil or the mud or creek water or whatever it is. Just, I think there's something I was reading that dirt, actually, like the smell of dirt releases serotonin or something.
Mm.
It could be a nice day just to repot some plants or
Oh, which I do need to do. Thank you for that reminder.
no
Yes,
worries.
yes.
No,
Yeah, repot your plants right before, because maybe they will have what they need to like fully flourish and grow under that trine. Very
but just like
Capricorn for us.
that thirst, I guess, for a new story as well. And
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
And,
Yeah.
Jupiter is, yeah, like a Venusian yearning will confront the more sort of, Aquarian intellectual sphere, I suppose, like pierce the heart and the mind might start to, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that too, because Venus and Saturn together are considered friendly
Yeah.
um energies together. Like they want to work together, and we need them when in relationship and creativity and things. We need those two things
Mhm.
together. Like you can't
The
have
creative constraint, the
yes, like that's how you can be truly creative, is when you have enough boundaries that what container you can create within. And like
totally.
Venus is that creative vibe, and Saturn can be that container. And so like
Mhm.
they traditionally do are our friend and not foe. So
Mhm.
yeah, we just can't, once again we get back to balance. And it's the same thing even with alchemical speaking. When you think of copper
Mhm.
and lead, you have to like
Yeah.
balance out. If you have too much Venusian copper, you got to bring that lead in there. Saturn's like, all right, you need to buckle down a little bit here. But if it's too lead, it's like, oh, I got to lighten up. I got to see some friends. I got to connect. I got to
Yeah.
create. I got to just relax.
I
um,
love alchemy as like a guiding theme through
yeah.
the astrology of Aquarius season.
Yeah. Well, we'll continue to touch on our alchemical components and see where it takes us. But that's really how the sun enters Aquarius, just before that North Node trine, which is very interesting. But
Mhm.
not too long after that, the next thing that takes place is basically always considered a decently big event, and that is when the sun is going to conjunct Mercury retrograde, or vice versa, actually, on
Mhm.
the 23rd, on Sunday at 3 degrees of Aquarius. And so there's a couple things going on. We basically have that weekend in the beginning of the week. Uh, we have the Sun Mercury retrograde inferior conjunction, and then we have Mars that's going to ingress into Capricorn the next day. So we have two kind of like seeding moments, or the shifting energy on that Sunday through Monday. So let's talk about that
Mhm.
inferior cazimi
Mhm.
first. And right in a kind of very sensitive. The early degrees of Aquarius are very sensitive. We got Jupiter, Saturn that met
Yeah.
there, Mars, Saturn met there. We're going to have Venus and Mars that are going to meet there in a handful of weeks. And so what's your take on old Mercury starting a new cycle in that Kazemi?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there is something probably um again sort of that bridging of the earth and the air elements, like a sort of drafting of the blueprints of sort of our future, what structures are being put into place, but in that more sort of conceptual space, I suppose. And
Mm-hmm.
there with the Kazemi, there's often epiphany or sort of a piercing moment of clarity for sort of, yeah, if we open ourselves to transmissions from the cosmos, there can be startling revelations. And like you say, it might tie into this kind of broader story of entering into like the 200-year air age, and time being strange, and living in an age of airborne pathogens and
Mm.
more decentralized, maybe, power structures. But I think it's a really good moment to just kind of like sit down and sort of draft plans, and you'll have that clarity with Saturn as well to really, you know, find the, like, you'll have the mental mobility to kind of dream and scheme and hypothesize, but there will be very practical application and sort
Yeah.
of going, yeah, like working against the grain of certain constraints as well, which can produce, like we were saying, more creativity or innovation as well. So and Mars going into Capricorn, like this is a really one of the best Mars moments really of the year, I would say. Mars
Yes, we are all.
exalted and
Yeah, I feel like we're all waiting for Mars to go into Capricorn. So it's interesting to think
sure.
about just timeline wise, if we are going to still subscribe to the idea of time, is that I agree with you that there is a definitely a drafting, a planning, an epiphany, a transmission sort of day on Sunday the 23rd, especially since we have the moon here in Libra as well. That's going to be
Yeah.
trining in
Yeah.
to that conjunction. But what's interesting, and having Mars at the 29th degree of Sagittarius, which is also very visionary and looking towards the journey forward. And it's at that like
Mhm.
very, final critical degree of
Very
Sagittarius before,
questy, call to
yes,
adventure.
very
Yeah.
questy before it gets to work. And, what's interesting is like, I've been under this journey, I've been on my own journey with actually Spencer Michaud. I
Mm,
wrangled him in to do this book called Tarot and the Gates of Light. I think hopefully
cool.
I have that right.
I love
But
Spencer Michaud's work. It's yeah, beautiful.
oh, great. And so we've been on this journey, tarot journey through the Kabbalah it's a 49-day journey. And it's
Mhm.
based on the Jewish tradition of counting the Omer, which I hope I'm saying that right. But on the and it on the 50 so it's a 49-day journey. It's aligned with the tarot, and on the 50th day is the day of revelation. And so it's a Jewish
Mhm.
practice that is not always aligned with the tarot, but it's aligned with they do this yearly and I'm butchering this. I am not Jewish. I respect Jewish practices and I'm very engaged in what I'm doing right now with it. But we lined it up to where our 50th day, when we come out of the final count, which is all about making each day count, is actually going to be the Sun Mercury retrograde Kazemi. So our day of revelation is what it's called,
I love
is
that.
going to line up with this Kazemi. And so whether you're counting the Omer or not, I really feel like I have it even in my passion planner. It already says day of revelation. Like it's almost like give yourself some space that day. Give yourself some
Yeah.
space to think, to plan, to have some quiet, to engage in learning something that
Or
might
even
send
stream
you.
of consciousness writing
Yes.
in your journal or yeah, of having your voice memo app at the ready to just
That's right.
thoughts that come out of thin air.
Yeah, because it's a small window. And to think
Yeah.
about the moon trining in there, giving extra air energy, and the fact that Mars is about to move into Capricorn, which is
Yeah.
definitely going to be a period of like we can actually get things done,
Yeah.
concrete,
Yes.
real world, physical, like things are going to be done.
Yeah.
Knowing where you're headed and being very clear on that process and having a plan,
Mhm.
plan, but plan to change your plans always because you got to have that flexibility. But knowing enough of structure of where you're headed is going to be so valuable to Mars moving into Capricorn. So let us talk
Yeah, have
about.
your research questions very clearly
Yeah,
directed.
that's right. I have a feeling you're going to be working on your PhD work
Yeah.
at that point. Um, so yeah, so insert Monday here when well, let me get it close enough here. When Mars moves into Capricorn, like as you stated, it's exalted there. It likes to be in
Yeah.
Saturn's domain, at least in the Capricornian nighttime domain.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, I'm excited. I want to get things done.
Yeah, get the ball rolling. It's a very, productive stretch of the year. And I think coming out of, there's just been so many roadblocks and, restrictions. And I think we're just going to find a groove, even if things are, excuse me, still sort of, Saturnian, there will be, well, let's make lemonade out of these lemons or, you know,
Yeah, it's like
if
I
we've
feel
painted
like
ourselves in a corner, it's like, well, I'm gonna make the best of where I am now. And there might be, yeah, just a willingness to make sort of incremental, but very, like Capricorn is the small steps up the mountain. And it's very deliberate and very, you know, granular and sort of day by day, but there's potential for, like, you know, these all of these steps to become something quite monumental.
Yes, that's and well, to me, like Mars is like I'm do what I gotta do. Like I'm okay. I see what I have to do. I see where I'm headed. This is cardinal energy. It's a
Yeah.
starting point. It's a pivot point. It's, you know, we're beginning. You know, people might be getting new jobs here, get settled into new homes, do homework, not actual home, maybe you don't do homework, but
Oh,
you know,
right. Why
work on
not?
the
Yeah.
home, work on your finances, give a fresh start there.
Yeah.
Just all types of things. It's a very productive period. And like you said, it just, you know, Mars and Sag, a little freewheeling. It's like, I'm gonna do what I want. I'm gonna do this. I'm
It's
looking over
definitely like
here.
the clown emoji crossed with the cowboy emoji or something.
Now it's like the hammer and the sword
Totally.
emoji and the
Yeah.
rock emoji and the calendar
Asserting
emoji.
asserting our boundaries as well. Like, that's my boundary
Yeah.
emoji. But yeah, just
Right. Well,
very, I don't know. I feel like there, after Venus retrograde, there's probably been quite a dismantling of our relationships, and just through the pandemic generally, it's become really sort of crystal clear in that Saturnian way, kind of who are our ride or dies, and who, you know, who's more of a fair weather friend or even a toxic friend. So that sort of, I don't know, coming out of Venus retrograde with the knowledge of, you know, I know we're still kind of dealing with Venus retrograde, but I think there will be more of a willingness to establish certain boundaries or even cut ties, or, you know, it's
yeah,
not easy work, but
it's
so,
necessary.
yeah, it's so beneficial and, yeah, so necessary.
Well, it makes me think of, and this is something that comes with age, but you know, time is finite. We only have so much energy.
This,
You
yeah,
know, like, and when another very Saturnian Capricorn word is priorities. And so, what are your priorities? Because whatever your
mm,
priority is, and whatever you have, you know, how much energy you have, like Mars is like, okay, well, we're going to get something done, but it's only the things that we have priority. It's only the things that are going to put us
yeah,
on the path to what we're trying to achieve, the goals that we have, the success we want to make. Like,
mm,
and there's not room for superfluous. This is where Mars is in Saturn's territory, and it comes back to the contraction, the constriction, and the plan, and the
conservation of energy, being strategic
exactly.
about the energy that you
Yes.
expend, controlled power, and almost sort of a,
Yes.
I've been taking Taekwondo classes, and I'm thinking
Ooh.
about, like, the, yeah, sort of the idea of controlled power,
Mm.
and sort of there can almost be, in especially Mars and Capricorn, the power can be in holding a defensive stance or waiting for precisely the right moment to strike, instead of just, you know, shooting at the hip, as Mars and Sagittarius is want to
Yeah,
do.
right. And then your bullet goes there, your bullet goes there. You know, you're not might not hit your target, even though the, you know, Sagittarius is always trying to
Yeah,
hit its target,
yeah.
but the precision.
One of those arrows in the volley will
One
hit
will
something.
get there.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I love that. And even when we think about the tarot correspondences that go along with this, you know, Mars is going to move into that two of Pentacles
yeah.
zone, which is actually Jupiter in
Hmm.
Capricorn. As the decan there. And so it is this
Hmm.
kind of moving forward to constraint, rearranging,
Hmm.
juggling things, moving
Totally.
things around so we can get to that really motivated and concentrated effort that comes in with the three of Pentacles once it gets to the, you know, Mars and Capricorn decan there. So
Almost like
it's
that centrifugal force. Like, if you can balance
mm,
the opposites,
yeah.
you might be dealing with two very different realities, but there is like a momentum that you can sort of slip into once you get them spinning, or,
Right. But it's like it makes me think of a, you know, like a body in motion stays in motion, but it has to be, and that's the thing is like we're once again cardinal earth energy. Yeah, we're gonna be in Aquarius season. We see that overlying picture, but we have so much going on in Capricorn that gives
yeah.
us that earthly, it's going to be Saturn heavy. Don't get us wrong. There's Saturn is doing its job.
We're doing our master class in Saturn. We're still
Yes.
deep in it.
Yeah, take notes. If you want to know anything about Saturn, you're in the zone. But yeah, it feels very productive in that sense with this shift because yeah, make good use of it because let's see, Mars is going to be in Capricorn until March 6th is when it seems to move into Aquarius there. So yeah, make good use of it.
All the fixed, mayhem. And
yes.
So
yeah.
And we have Mars retrograde. That's another story, but Mars retrograde in Gemini for half of the year, which I'm sure you're very excited about.
I'm not excited about it at all. It's a Mars ruled chart. I know you're Gemini rising, so I'm sure you're going to find it very interesting as well. But yeah, that's
I'll be wearing a helmet and knee pads for.
Oh, I know.
Anyway, yeah, make the most of it.
Make the most, right? Because we're gonna be all over the place for 7 months, basically. Just speaking as a native, I know how it's difficult to wrangle that Mars and Gemini in. Like it's a lot of talking. So basically, after Mars ingresses into Capricorn on Monday, the 24th, we have a last quarter moon in Scorpio on Tuesday, the 25th, the next day. So we're waning down in the cycle. We have kind of this turn of the page in Scorpio energy, which is, we've got that kind of critical point in fixed signs. It's got that Saturnian element that comes back into it. But there's other things going on that day too, because Mercury retrograde is going to move back into Capricorn right after Mars moves into Capricorn. Mercury is going to trine the North Node, just like the sun did right before Aquarius season began. And then it's going to conjunct Pluto for a second pass on the 28th. So basically the 25th to the 28th it's last quarter Scorpio-y, which can always be a little intense. But then we have the Plutonian aspect and Mercury retrograding back into Capricorn. So what do you think about that? What do you think about Mercury going back in last quarter moon? Anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, it feels like there's some bit of intel or something that's been forgotten in the underworld that needs to perhaps be retrieved or revisited. There's kind of that, with the last quarter moon energy as well, that kind of what is the takeaway as well, or what did I learn during that Cazimi moment, maybe in Aquarius, and why? I think there's going to be something about that revelation with the Cazimi that will be sort of the spur to get us back into Capricorn territory and revisit that part of our charts. I mean, I'm hoping for myself that I'm not doing corrections on my thesis, but you never know.
You never know. You never know.
But there's just something that maybe an open question, needs to be addressed. Or what do you think?
Well, and it's interesting now that I'm looking at it, because I feel, whenever we have the tension of the sun and the moon and it's square, there's always tension, there's always activation, there's always something we probably have to contend with in some way. We take finalizing actions in that last quarter square. But now that I'm looking at it, the way that it sent me to the wrong thing. Okay. What's interesting about it is not only do we get the square from the moon in Scorpio to the sun in Aquarius and activating that kind of Cazimi energy that was just there a couple days prior, but we get a trine to Jupiter at the same time, which is, the sun is the moon is playing a transference of light basically from the sun to Jupiter and then going to move on to square Saturn later in the day. So there's an interesting, like, I have to do this. I see some sort of vision or trajectory moving forward, or I am
Yeah.
confronted with something that has to expand. But before it expands, I have to think about everything that still needs work or needs to constrict,
Yeah.
and then all the emotional energy that comes behind that. Because with Scorpio, it's just like, ah,
It's a moment of, yeah, like emotional, just the ugly crying emoji if we're continuing on the emoji train.
I know. Well, it makes me think, because we just talked about, well, and this is the great thing about rulership is, the moon's in its fall there in Scorpio, but it has an exalted ruler behind it now. So at least we have that Mars in Capricorn, where even if you get through like the ugly cry, you're like, oh, I got to do this. I'm ready. But you get that passion behind it. You get the emotions out first and you're like, all right, I'm going to handle this. I'm going
There's
to do it.
a willingness to maybe really dig into sort of
Yes.
more difficult or even taboo subjects, or sort of, emotional stuff that normally we would rather sort of put in a box for later. But I think there's a willingness to really get our hands dirty and just
Yes.
get deep in it. And that sort of, exalted Mars, I think, helps us to, not get overwhelmed, like to just almost like chunkify it, or kind of be able to approach it piece by piece instead of getting sort of engulfed.
I love that, because so what I'm hearing us say basically is that, like, Tuesday, the 25th, we got that last quarter moon. It's going to present us with something. It could make us a little emotional. We might be able to change those emotions and drive it into passion and get deep with it, because that's when Mercury is going to shift basically into Capricorn and then go on to conjunct Pluto there on the 28th through that whole week. So there's something about this whole week basically where we might have to do some deep investigations, right? Think about Scorpio, like we have to dive deep into something. We got to get like you said, I love what you said, get your hands dirty. Like, I gotta get to the nitty gritty of it. And your mind has that control and that focus and that willing to deal with something that might be unsavory. It might be something you don't necessarily want to do, but you have to do. And now you have the focus to do it. And you got to push something through to the end, because at the same time, we have the sun just inching ever closer to Saturn. So there is this like culminating force that is continuing on to be like, I gotta take care of things. I got things to do. And it could be something that's been sitting on the plate for a while, right? Because Mercury's retrograde. So it's like, I've been avoiding this.
Totally.
I gotta do this now, So, and what's interesting too, at the same time, on the 28th, on Friday, when we have the Mercury retrograde Pluto conjunction, is that we also have the sun. And I don't know if you work with Chiron at all, but we have the sun sextile and Chiron in Aries there. So there is this kind of like just awareness of the things that might trigger us in a sense, because Mercury Pluto,
like emotional shrapnel shifting.
Absolutely.
Like there's an opening as well, or something maybe gets dislodged. Like Chiron has that ability almost. Mercury as psychopomp kind of does this as well, but this ability to kind of bridge parts of the psyche that have been fractured and sort of cut off from each other through trauma, and sort of like weaving or even alchemizing these kind of wounded shards back into some sort of healed emotional whole. And that's kind of, I think, the gift of Chiron. But there could be a lot of breakthroughs and healing as well, or something being dislodged, which recalibrates the whole system maybe.
And it's very interesting to think about too, because it's not exact in this particular on this particular day on the 28th, but at this point we do have Mars, as we keep talking about Mars now in Capricorn, which is the ruler now of Chiron and Aries. And so they're slowly going to perform a square. We're not there yet, but it's interesting because the sun always brings us some sort of breakthrough, right? It gives us consciousness. It And a sextile opens a door. We got to work for it. We see it. We might know what we need to address. Could be great body work that's done at these
Mm,
times too, because, we have so much
mhm.
going on in Capricorn, and we talk about those blockages and like,
Yeah.
pains, and the stretching them, and getting things out that, like, maybe surgeries that need to happen, that are like in the way
Yeah.
of, like, you know what I mean? Like there seems to be some sort of a slow address of some pain or triggers or learning opportunities that
Mhm.
Mercury Pluto is bringing up. But there's just, like, the sun in Aquarius sees like like the bigger picture. It's like,
Yeah.
I have to do this. I got to do this hard work. I got to do this thing that could be painful or require very physical, um things of me, like, like if you had to get surgery, I'm not saying, I don't know who does or if you did,
Yeah.
but when you get surgery, a lot of times there's all these things that have to go after it. The care, the routine, like, just being
Physio.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it seems like a very potent healing time, that I love how you said, kind of bringing the fragmented parts together and like removing blockages, but the things you have to do to get through that are not always pretty per se.
And I also think as well, like with, you know, Mercury, Pluto, and sort of more invisible realms, like Pluto kind of ruling over invisible underworld realms, but maybe there's like an energy work or Reiki or
Yeah.
the mysteries of osteopathy with, you know, Capricorn and the bones, like this
Yeah.
kind of these healing modalities that you don't know how they work or what's happening, but somehow they do shift something. Like I've had powerful experiences with Reiki, and where I do, like, I can feel the energy being adjusted,
I'm right there with you. Like,
and
it's, yeah.
it'd be a powerful, you know, time to lean into that kind of work. And especially like with the sextile, you know, that being Venus's aspect, that sort of, you know, having somebody guiding you through this process, or, you know, some sort of mediation, I suppose.
Well, and it can also be a very communal aspect too. Like if you're in a group
Um,
setting, or something, or like a healing within a community too,
mhm.
of some sort, just because we are in Aquarius season. Like maybe you're in a healing circle,
Yeah.
and it brings up where everybody can bring up their individual, you're tapping into your individual wound, but the connection of the
Mhm.
collective, and the outlook or consciousness of your peers, or what help you integrate what needs to shift, or just gives you that
Totally.
aha moment, or etc. So,
This is a digression, but I used to do family constellation therapy, and it's done in a
mm,
group, and you have other group members act out a scene that is kind of representative of a trauma or something that you're working through. But there's such power in sort of being able to see patterns in your life outside of yourself play out, or sort of hand it over to other figures.
hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Well, there's many variations there, but
for
yeah,
sure.
it just definitely seems like there's a lot of power that is at our fingertips. Um and you think about Pluto, like, what's the one word that everyone brings up? They're like, transformation. We're going to transform.
Pluto on a good day, maybe. Yeah.
Yes. But I mean, it's really cliche to say, but when you like change your mind, you can change your life. And so there is something to be said about Mercury going to station on Pluto in these moments. And if you're just in a mental, recalibration, it's like,
Mhm.
this is potent. You can come out on the other side and you're like, oh wow, I've been like a nana, you've been scraped clean in
Yeah.
your brain. You've been like, think about
You're
Shu always talks
naked
about
and
that. Yeah,
yeah,
your brain is naked. Your brain is
yeah.
naked. It's vulnerable. It's ready to be reintroduced to to where everything's going. Like, strip the layers of your perception.
Well, it's
Um,
funny, I'm actually doing like dry January, and it does, you know, feel like
yeah.
that stripping and sort of the naked brain, you know.
Yeah.
But also, like with Mercury Pluto too, I think there can sometimes be a moment where through conversation or whatever it is, like somebody will show you who they are. And there's
Mm.
that, you know, that quote, if somebody shows you who they are, believe them. And I think Pluto does reward us when we sort of confront the more unsavory aspects of our relationships or a toxic situation. And it's sort of a, okay, I am seeing this clearly. I'm going to just walk away from it and not have the, you know, perpetuate the cycle by having the last word, or, you know,
You know,
sometimes the hardest thing can just be to walk away.
and you know what brought to mind immediately when you said that to me, was thinking about the idea of actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
Because when we have Mercury and Pluto together, like there could be manipulation with speech. There can be like, oh,
Oh,
I'm
power
going to
games.
like, yeah, I'm gonna like formulate this and paint this picture for you. But what is the action behind it? Like what is,
The
you
hidden
know, the
motivation.
hidden motivation? What do you see like that? And realize that there can be some trickery when it comes, especially Mercury still retrograde with like
Yeah.
just the Plutonian dynamic, but that Mars is very strong. Like, how are people acting? How are you acting? You know, we think about the
Mhm.
square that's brewing to Chiron there, and we just talked all about the Chiron energy that's coming through there. And I like how you brought up earlier about Venus and Venus going direct and Venus and Mars meeting and creating
Mhm.
boundaries within relationships and who you want
Yeah.
to have as alliances and where you
Yeah.
might need to separate from certain connections. And really
Yeah.
what happens after January 28th is the following day is when Venus is going to station direct on Saturday.
Right.
In that loose trying to, not loose, but it's not exact a trying to Uranus, but
Yeah.
yeah, so they all that's really coinciding very well together at the end of that week, isn't it? This whole
It
picture that
is.
we're painting. Yeah. And so basically Venus is going to station direct on Saturday, and then the following day we have the sun making the square to Uranus. So we have a lot of energy in the air basically. Uh that all does kind of like a pivot change of all that we just talked about with Mercury Pluto, of the Chiron energy, Venus stationing. And she was like, all right, I'm emerging. I've been doing this for quite some time. Here we go.
My God. It's,
I'm
yeah.
ready. And so once again, we have kind of this like transference energy where
Mm.
we have these Uranian connections happening. Um, but I mean, Venus and the Sun can't see each other, but they traded their batons off in the relay race, you know, a handful of weeks ago on January 8th. So there is a Uranian component going on right
Maybe
now.
the way out of the underworld is not the same way that you went in, or there's
That's
some,
usually the case.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, what do you think about I mean, we've already kind of touched on like the idea of Venus emerging in many ways, and she'll
Yeah.
play a point as we go forward. But having the sun square Uranus for that weekend on Saturday and Sunday, basically 29th, 30th of January. We're in the dark days of a lunar cycle because we're about to have a new moon in
Mhm.
Aquarius on Monday the 31st. And so we're in this reflective, contemplative, quieting, closing down type of energy. And we basically have the sun squaring Uranus, which is our introductory ultimately to the sun triggering the Saturn Uranus square. So any ideas of like Uranus coming into the fray, the quiet of the dark moon, and what that could kind of elicit?
I mean, I feel like the veil is always quite thin during the
Yeah.
dark of the moon, and um, sort of similar to like Kazemi moments, I feel like there is a sort of a potential, if we quiet ourselves and open ourselves and set aside some time during the dark of the moon to journal or play with our cards or runes or hexagrams or whatever it is, there, you know, the veil is thin and there's intel that can be had. And yeah, it feels like on the threshold, like with Uranus, you know, Sun Uranus, there's a quantum leap out of the underworld that can be taken. This is not maybe just a sort of crawling out on our hands and knees. I feel like if we open ourselves to the possibilities, there could be quite a radical sort of rewriting of Venusian patterns or a sudden breakthrough. Like we've been in this area of Capricorn, sort of, you know, Venus has been up and down and all around. And yeah, there's, I think, perhaps the potential to really take a brave leap forward, but it
Mm.
requires surrender. And I think that sort of dark of the moon time will help us tune in with our intuition and sort of quiet the shoulds and the sort of external static and societal pressure, and really just figure out what it is that we like, what sort of bold individual breaking of ties or emancipation in that very vulnerable, kind of powerful, you know, Inanna, naked and trembling. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited about this moment.
I am too, because I mean, when we think about Taurus, we think about stillness, we think about peace, we think
Mhm.
about, I mean, that's why it's hard to get a Taurus to move sometimes. It's like I'm
Yeah.
comfortable here.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
but having Uranus there, I feel like, and then in the dark days of the moon is the best time for reflection and that quietness and the
Yeah.
veil that you speak of. And so if
Yeah.
we are able to get into the stillness of space, there could be just very tangible breakthroughs that can happen, right? Because we,
Yeah.
part of the Saturn Uranus square is that we're all architecting the blueprint of our lives, and like the
Yeah.
how we interact with routine and day to day, and where we nest, and like all these
And how
the
we find
jobs we do.
innovation from constriction, like how we alchemize, you know, blockages into, yeah,
Yeah.
innovation, which is huge.
Well, and I love that because Aquarius is aligned with innovation, right? Uranus is aligned with innovation. We have our consciousness testing us in a square aspect, which is also an
Yeah.
activating aspect of innovation. And so this is the moment in your life and the weekend,
Yeah.
that you might want to ask yourself, like, how am I evolving? How am I innovating my life? What do I know that I need to change or integrate or
Mm.
align with, or get in the right birds of a feather? Like if we're talking about Venus stationing direct too, am I aligned with the right group
Yeah,
that
totally.
is helping my ability to evolve as a person, but also to contribute who my individuality is into society? And these are big questions, like, not to make it all heavy on you, but we're
Yeah.
going into an Aquarius new moon that's the conjunct Saturn, that's lighting up Saturn
Yeah.
Uranus square. And yeah, having that Uranian like break apart, it brings me to what you were saying earlier too,
Mm.
about like dislodging,
Mm.
like fragmented pieces, like dislodging a solid, but also the fragments starting to find how and where they fit back in. And
In
they're,
that very
like you said,
Venusian way, right? Yeah.
yeah, and to become whole again, but in a
Yeah.
different form, Saturn, of how it started. So
Well,
yeah.
it's kind of like we've maybe been, you know, moth goo for the past few weeks, you know, Venus in that sort of transition as well between morning and evening star, and
Yeah.
that holding pattern, you know, there's a lot that's been happening that maybe we haven't had vocabulary for. And I think Mercury going back into Capricorn as well will begin to allow us to put words to this sort of very protean, very mysterious kind of shifting and recalibration of our values, our value systems, our relationships, our connection to pleasure, all of these things. But I think as Venus emerges from that sort of cocoon, like the chrysalis, I know this is a metaphor that's maybe a bit cheesy or overused, but
It is what it
the
is.
it is what it is. There's like it's a moment of vulnerability and sort of the wings. You know, you haven't used these new wings yet. They're a bit sticky, but you can sense the lift that's to come. And maybe the only thing to, yeah, like with the sun Uranus, there's perhaps an ego block or something like the way that we get in our own ways, or our egos kind of, you know, oftentimes we can be our own worst enemies, right?
This
And I
is
think,
fixed energy we're talking about.
yeah, and Taurus, very stubborn, like maybe considering the ways in the past, or these sort of stuck patterns of self-sabotage, or whatever it is. I think there's a real possibility of breaking through that more self-inflicted kind of restriction, or
Yeah. It just brings me to the like another very cliche thing that we always hear is the, break down to break through, and this whole week has like ever since the Scorpio last quarter up until this new moon that we're going to talk about here, there is a lot of that potential to break down to break through. So
for sure.
keep that in mind if you're in the moment and you're like, oh, there is that twist, that plot twist that can come.
Yeah.
But let us talk about this new moon here where I'm like, why is my chart look funny? Because I've had it on Washington DC this whole time instead of where I'm in San Diego, which
Okay.
I'm like February 1st, because the new moon is at 12:46 a.m. on the East Coast, and it's on
Right.
the day prior, it's on the 31st, very late at night there in the Pacific. So
Right.
I guess I'm Mercury retrograde. I'm in Washington now.
Yeah, we're in DC.
We're in
Maybe
DC. It's
capital.
cool. Which see the new moon has Uranus right in the descendant of DC. So that's interesting.
Ooh.
For all you mundane astrologers out there.
Yeah.
But okay, so we have this new moon that we've been alluding to taking place, and this reseeding. And of course, this new moon signature is really all about, sun, moon, Saturn, just hanging out in a big old party there. And it really is a Saturnian lunation all through and through, because it's like we have this party in Capricorn that are all looking to this Saturn.
Yeah.
And even this Uranus has to go through Venus to get to Saturn. And so really the only, free agents here is Jupiter, and then Neptune under Jupiter, but everything else is incredibly Saturnian here. And we've talked about Mercury retrograde conjunct Pluto, Venus gestation direct. We got Mars exalted and activated in many ways, and tapping into Jupiter in a sextile.
Yeah.
But any key words of like a new moon in Aquarius that that we haven't really touched on? We've been alluding to a lot of, things, but
Yeah, this new moon is happening in the second decan of Aquarius,
yeah.
which, Three of Pentacles energy is again very, very good for planning.
Oh, the
And
Three of Swords.
oh,
Or
sorry,
do
no,
we,
I was thinking of Capricorn.
yeah, well, but we do have Three of Pentacles energy going on here
We
too
do.
with Capricorn. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
yes, we have the Six of Swords. We have the Six of Swords and the Three
Yeah.
of Pentacles happening here. But
Mercury is doing
I
little.
know Mercury is dancing over our brains right now,
Oh.
and like doing like a river dance and
Um,
oh
but yeah, the Six of Swords as sort of the card being activated by the new moon, I feel like there is this, the Six of Swords has that transitional quality to it, and sort of
Mhm.
allowing yourself to be ferried, from sort of choppy waters to sort of the glassy bay of your healing, as cheesy as that might sound. But I think I think going into this new moon, being willing to, because there's so much Saturn and that sort of, okay, there's still movement is maybe not forthcoming, but if we can just sort of settle into, like in the card, there's a woman with her child, and their backs are to us, and they seem like they've been through something pretty arduous or some sort of trauma, but they're just kind of quietly sitting, in the boat. The new moon time has that quiet as well, and that still to it, even if there is like a desire to start planting seeds. But I think maybe the most important seed that we can plant is just to surrender to the currents and trust that we are being taken exactly where we need to go, with Jupiter and Neptune as well, kind of doing their own thing, like trusting there is some sort of benevolent current that
Mm.
will be taking us to calmer waters, even though things still feel very difficult and heavy and Saturnian.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because I mean, when I think of the Six of Swords, essentially there is this just point of to be in balance, you have
Mm-hmm.
to move on.
Yeah.
And it's like, and sometimes moving on can be like, you're excited to move on, you're ferrying over into this new space. Other times you're like, I'm not crazy about what happened, but I know that I can't stay there anymore. And I have to make the passage through. And this is the Saturnian new moon, of course, with Saturn there. But like you said about going with the flow of knowing that there's beneficence, like
Yeah.
in the picture to come, when we have that Pisces new moon a month later, that is a
Yeah.
Jupiterian new moon. So there's a lot of like, you got to do that Saturn piece.
Yeah.
Might have to do the hard stuff. You have to like constrict and cut off or separate or create space or prioritize or, all these Saturn words.
Deferred gratification is,
Yes, delayed.
still,
I love that. Delay. I don't love that, but I love the idea.
it
But
feels apropos.
yes, it does. It does. But it's, here's the thing is like half the time delayed gratification is in service to the ultimate goal, the ultimate
Exactly.
plan, the vision, the thing that we see, the transition, the passage we're making across. It's like we are making that passage because there's a new plan that is coming into form. And we just have to start moving on to that. And
I remember as a child, I've got an angular Saturn retrograde, in the seventh house, but I used to put ice in my snow boots and walk the whole half hour walk home with ice in my boot,
wow.
because when I took the boots off and had cheese and crackers and watched Blind Date by the fire, it was so much more enjoyable to have my feet thaw
Yeah, it
after.
was like the comfort, like the extreme comfort. It's almost like I extreme, like, just so that I can really feel that's funny. That's funny.
I don't know what that says about me.
Well, I know that you said you have Saturn and Sagittarius, right? And Jupiter
Yeah,
sign. I feel like having like when you have a planet like in its antithesis like that, there's these extremes that happen, right?
sure.
To some extent. So that's an interesting little fun fact, little cold feet, little cold feet.
Cold
That's
feet.
oh, I feel like a
But
Saturn
we
and
will we
Pisces
will
would do that
earn that
too.
in Pisces. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so this is a potent new moon. It's a Saturnian new moon. We're on the plan. Mercury's already got it already been Plutoed. It's about to go direct. Venus is direct, and so I
It
love the
feels still
idea of
feels very constructive.
it.
Like
It does.
it's
It
not the
does.
most fun, but it feels productive. And I think if we can lean into that space of planning for the future and just kind of drawing pleasure from, you know, knowing that we're creating the structures for our future sort of Gemini, or not Gemini, Pisces, windfalls and joy. And but we have to do this work first,
Yeah, it gives us that fuel
Yeah.
there. And so now just to play off everything you just said, like our next kind of moves here on February 3rd, and February 4th is Mercury stationing direct on the 3rd. And then on the 4th, we have Sun conjunct Saturn, which we're going to feel on the 3rd too. But
Oh,
it's interesting to think about Mercury, emerging and going direct and on Pluto. It feels like a very decisive moment to me. Like it's just
yeah.
like we know where our priorities lie. We know what the plan looks like, whether we have
Yep.
chosen it for ourselves or the universe or the community has been like, this is where we're going.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very definitive.
Hyperrealism for sure, and
Mm,
conviction, and yeah, sometimes knowing exactly what you don't want can be a powerful kind of launching place.
yeah. And it's interesting that during that day, like Mercury stations, we've got that like sleepy Pisces moon action near Neptune. But the following day, when the sun conjuncts Saturn on the 4th, uh we've got that Aries moon. And so we're kind of off to the road. Like we know what we need
Yeah,
to do. We've got the energy behind us. The moon is square Mars. So, that
off to the races.
Friday, yeah, that Friday you would think, go home early. Like, well, I don't know. None of us work anymore. Not, that's not true. But there's definitely an off to the races. There is like
Yeah.
irritation to begin, and motivation is like, okay, let's do this. I'm like, let's get it done. And that Aries moon on Friday and then on Saturday too seems very productive, a little irritating.
There might
But
be like some sort of, with Chiron as well, there like activation,
yeah.
or like you say, irritation being the spur for, really concrete action, sort of. Yeah, it can be, irritation can be fuel, right?
It
And
absolutely, I
or
swear, when you're mad at something or you're like, oh, this got to change, or when you're really passionate and it's
yeah,
just like your blood is boiling, the fire is raised, you move forward. And
like,
and this is the whole thing going on here too, to go along with our Mars station or our Mercury stationing direct and the sun conjunct Saturn, is at that same time from February 4th to February 8th, like through that weekend and early part of the next week, we have Mars making its move. So basically Mars in Capricorn is going to make its sextile to Jupiter that we've been alluding to on that Friday as well. And then the square to Chiron there too, and then a trine to Uranus. So Mars be ready.
Mars making some money moves, yeah. And I think especially if we can sort of work outside of our comfort zone and sort of work through imposter syndrome, or, there's that edge where the fear is there, but it's just enough that it sort of can be used as fuel instead of paralyzing us, kind of finding that edge of discomfort that will kind of lead to innovation or breakthroughs.
Yeah, I love that because we're really
The
leading
growth
up.
edge. Yeah.
Yeah, we're really leading up to our first quarter, which is going to be in Taurus. So there's all
Mhm.
this energy for the weekend on, the 5th, the 6th, the early part of that next week, where we're ready to take care of business. We're doing, we've got the fire
Grab
behind
that
us.
bull by the horns.
We're
Yeah.
grabbing the bull by the horns. We're ready to work in many respects, because when you're pushing off into a first quarter and taking action and friction and just getting the ball rolling, we're getting the ball rolling in very tangible spaces of Taurus with Uranus there. And so if you need to change things about your life, you're starting a new job, you need to quit a job, you need, like, I don't know why I'm so job focused, but like there, you want to reconstruct your meal planning, and you're starting off, there's all these different things that
Or
uh
kickstart a pleasure routine,
oh,
like
I like
really
that.
get serious about, your
She,
pampering
it
and
is Venus. She is,
yeah.
and she is direct now. She's like, I have been starved for my needs. Yeah, well, I don't know, but I feel like Venus in Capricorn would be very like regimented towards its beautifying needs, or like self comfort, or,
Very like
like
Marie Kondo, like this sparks joy and this does not, and being very cut and
very
dry.
clear about that. Yeah, so a lot of productivity happening in around that time. So definitely take advantage of it. And if you get irritated, how are you going to direct that fuel? Like just
Exactly.
get it, like put it where it's not combusting your overall goal, like redirect it. And I think
You know how
you'll
there's that person that sometimes activates you because they're everything that you want to be? Like that can be a really
yeah,
productive thing right now to kind of, work with that competitive, you know, friction.
the competitive edge.
Yes.
And so this brings us to basically the next move of Mercury on the 11th, which is so basically Mercury is going to do some moves here. It's going to conjunct Pluto. And so all this talk that we've been talking about, Mercury has been on Pluto during this whole
Yeah.
time. So think about that, like really think about that, and like how just pivotal this time is
There's
for.
something in your life that you've been tunneling into, like total rabbit hole, like rabbit holes,
Yeah.
beget rabbit holes. It's, yeah.
Yeah. And so obviously it's going to be very Capricorn in nature, whatever Capricorn lies in your chart, but also look at the houses of Gemini and Virgo, because those are subsidiaries of Mercurial energy. And so you're probably going to notice a pattern going on between all those. But, Mercury is going to conjunct Pluto on Friday, the 11th. And then it's basically going to trine the North Node again. So we get that once again, and Pluto's trining the North Node at that time too. So there is something very pivotal with Mercurial energy, with Plutonian energy, and the North Node, all from February 11th
Feels very
until.
whistleblower or like speaking truth to
Yes.
power, or,
Yes.
you know, like
It,
to follow the path of destiny, you need to, I don't know, risk an inconvenient truth or put
well,
light to something, a shadow of fear that's, kind of lingering.
and it's very appropriate that you say that, because the whole time that that's happening is that the sun, while Pluto's trining and Mercury's trining, the sun is square the nodes. So
Yeah.
once again, that revealing, that coming out, that shining the light on something that is very destiny within the making. Like these are serious news days.
Yeah.
Basically Friday the 11th through Tuesday the 15th, that whole weekend, like this is secrets be coming out. You you learn things about yourself that you never knew. You're like, oh, okay, well now I'm like got a whole nother way of looking at this, and my mind has changed. Or you get a pivotal email or phone call or text, or you read something that is just like it brings you to a whole new level of like consciousness. Like these are not, I am not seeing configurations like this before. So it is
Yeah.
potent.
Yeah, definitely. Something subconscious sort of birthed into conscious realization that just changes everything, that can change your life direction or sort of make you realize what what you need to let go of, perhaps. Like Pluto can be there's that sort of being attached and clinging to something. So there might be an ability to just sort of let go of something as well, to move towards that place of abundance and kind of soul growth.
And insert Venus conjunct Mars the following day on February 16th, which this is a long time in the making. So everything we were just talking about there and the words you were just speaking, we
The
get
sexual
to,
tension has been
ooh,
palpable.
that is, it's like, it's, you can cut it. It's like as thick, I'm like, I have so many words, they're not coming together in the right way, but it is thick. You can cut the air with a knife. Is that what they say?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And so here we have, and it's so interesting. I was thinking about Venus and Mars the other day with, I mean, we call them the relationship planets, but the reason they're the relationship planets is because they bring us two things that we need in relationship. One, Venus being the connective component where we're coming together and we're merging
Mhm.
with something. And two, Mars, the separation component, because we're all individual entities and we have to have separation from what we make union with. And so in order to be in right relationship, we have to be able
Yeah,
to be in union but also be in solidarity. So it's like it's an interesting component that comes together. And if there has been like just imbalance on either side, I feel
mhm.
like this, and it's going to be a long story because Venus and Mars are going to hold hands for many weeks with another
Yeah, they're
conjunction
doing a sort
coming.
of, yeah, sort of handing off conjunctions, and there's a very kind of, yeah, being in a cat and mouse kind of chasing quality, which is quite
Yes,
romantic as well.
I do.
And
I like
or even
it.
just not necessarily relational, but being romanced by a new wisdom pursuit or the mystery of life itself. I think if we're willing to sort of surrender to that, yeah, very fluid kind of give and take, it can be quite, yeah, creatively generative.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this. It also happens on my moon, so
Ooh.
I'm intrigued about that.
Yeah.
Um, and I will talk more about that. I believe I'll have Gary Caton on. We're going to talk about Venus and Mars in an episode before that happens too. So stay tuned for more about Venus, Mars, and its cycle and things along those lines. But February 16th, this is a big day. It's a long time coming.
Yeah.
And everything that Stephanie and I've been talking about the lead up to that, like you can see that there's big moves as individuals, in relationships, as a community. Like we're touching all angles at once here. And while that's happening, it really brings us to our next big lunar event, which is the full moon at 28 degrees of Leo. And it's always a big moon, right? The moon in Leo, it's like, ta-da, very performative,
Very
very
prima
out.
donna for sure.
Yeah.
Here's my
Um,
soliloquy.
yeah. And so there's a couple things. I'm going to just state a couple facts here real quick, and then I'm going to give the floor to you, Stephanie, to give some thoughts. But, we
Mhm.
have a full moon in Leo with its ruler being the sun in Aquarius, which is the position, of its detriment. So there's always that interesting factoid
Mhm.
there. But the main thing is the fact that this is pretty much an exact square to the, ooh, look at that weird line, to the lunar node. So this is a full moon that really catches us in a web of destiny once again with
Mhm.
the nodal component. But also we have Jupiter over here in Pisces sextiling Uranus, which is adding its own little thing going on there. And of course, Venus and Mars together. So Stephanie, what do you think about this full moon in Leo? It's pretty
It's
juicy.
it feels very Shakespearean, like
Hmm.
sort of like everybody is in elevated high costume, and every player on the stage must, again, have their part or sing their aria or have their soliloquy. Yeah, it feels very like there's a sudden, like the spotlight is on something, a sort of cri de coeur of the soul that must be sort of listened to and given the stage. And again, it has that sort of point of no return quality. Maybe there's, again, with the North Node, that sort of voracious appetite happening in a Venus ruled sign. I feel like there could be an explosion of like a desire for more connection and pleasure and sort of community cohesiveness as well, with the Jupiter,
Mm.
you know is it Jupiter, yeah,
Jupiter
sextile
and
Uranus.
Uranus. Yeah.
So I feel like there could be a lot of creativity that's kind of bubbling up, innovative sort of action bubbling up in groups as well, and kind of getting swept away by some sort of almost romantically idealistic movement, or there's just so much going on. It's
It
difficult.
is. It's like pick a planet. Let's say. I love what you're saying there, though, because to me, it does feel very creative in the sense. I mean, one of the things that we've been talking about with Jupiter and Pisces is like this creative, artistic renaissance that is underway. And so, if I would think about something being unleashed and brought to the public, having innovative art come to the forefront with Jupiter sextile Uranus during
like something better than NFTs.
yeah, hopefully
more inspiring.
Well, and it being very performative in a sense. I mean, we're talking about Leo full moon. Like this is when the singer reaches, new heights, and like, and you see something that is just like it like just kind of explodes your consciousness in a way, right? Because
like
you
the
see
curtain
this
drops and there's a whole new kind of
yes, and how that I'm part of that like creative unveiling, how that affects society from it, because when you put something that is incredibly creative out there, an artwork or a piece of music comes out that affects the whole public in a way where everyone's talking about it or connecting with it, or like, that is an Aquarian moment there. And the fact that Venus and Mars are conjunct, and they're both the rulers of the North Node and the South Node. So we have the nodal rulers holding hands in the sky at the same time, which is interesting, of having where we're going and where we come from kind of on the same page and fused. And it's like, so it's an interesting moment in time where, I don't know, I feel like that when you're talking about the creative spark, like that's like, yes, I feel like some things are going to be released that we're going to be talking about for years to come, basically.
Maybe it would be interesting to see what films are coming out around that time, or, maybe there's some sort of fad that takes over on the internet that's really creative. It's, and like the etymology of Renaissance is reawakening. So I think there will be something creatively kind of majestic that breaks us out of this kind of Saturnian slumber that we've been in. But it's very group oriented and sort of collaborative. And again, I think maybe something, virtual that sweeps the collective.
Well, and it makes me think too, it's like, well, what have we been working so hard on? What has Saturn been like cracking their whip about for so long? It's like Jupiter comes out. Yeah, Jupiter comes out with Uranus and is like, this is what it's all for. You see this contribution, you see what's coming forth, like all this behind the scenes, all this, sweat and toil, and like everything that has had to been gone through is like Jupiter's like, well, this full new thing that is being brought to the surface. And I think, and I love the idea of it like being connected to with some sort of like creative, like, social moment that brings a community together to engage within their own artistry, right? Because it's a full moon in Leo. So it's a very individualized component, because we think of Leo, it's like, well, Leo is all about you, or me. It's all about me. Or it's Aries-ish, but it's also, has that creative energy, that solar, like, how does it all wrap around me? And then how do I shine this light in the community sphere within that? And so
maybe people could be getting creative with activism and sort of, I remember when I lived in Spain, there were, the sort of protests that would spill out on the streets were often filled with pageantry and color and creative signs and costumes. And it kind of felt like a big party as well as a protest. And
I like that a lot. And like, even if it was just even if you were thinking about like online line space and people creating something in the name of a social movement, or like you're saying, like being behind a message of sorts, because we do have Mercury sitting there at 1 degrees of Aquarius, which we talked about this earlier. This is a very sensitive point in the zodiac that is being hit repeatedly, and it's getting to the point where it met the sun in the inferior conjunction back on when we first started out this podcast for
Yeah.
January 23rd. So we're coming back to that time too. And so there's also that, we talk about astrology is all cycles upon cycles upon cycles. So we're seeing all these kind of cycles collide at one time, and I think it's going to be a magnanimous full moon, which Leo would have no other way, right?
My sun in Leo
Oh, you're the
is
sun. That's right. Your sun in Leo. I said earlier you're a Cancer. You're not a Cancer. You're the sun in Leo, but you have a lot of Cancer planets.
I do have a big
Yes.
stellium in Cancer, but
Yes. She's got this Cancer. She's got plenty of Cancer. But I love Cancer Leo mixes. I'm one too. I feel you.
Yeah, I'm rather partial to that combination, but I'm also thinking back to the Great Conjunction, when that was, that captured the zeitgeist so much, and it was one of the first, it really became viral in a way. People, apart from Mercury retrograde, which seems to break into the mainstream, I was quite struck by how the collective imagination was being captured by the Great Conjunction. And there was that whole thing of like monoliths. Do you remember that? Like these
I do.
which is very like Uranian. I think there was some art group behind it probably, but I wonder if there will be another sort of strange performance art, authorless kind of thing that captures the collective imagination again.
Oh, I could definitely see that taking place with Jupiter and Pisces, Sextile
Maybe the monoliths
Taurus. Yeah,
back.
maybe they'll come back. We'll see him once again. But yeah, there is that kind of surreal quality that can come in with Pisces energy and Jupiter, but also in very natural settings when we think about Taurus and Uranus, and like, yeah, I love that. So it's going to be a big full moon, and really it kind of takes us to the end of Aquarius season. We have Jupiter making that exact sextile to Uranus the following day on the 17th there, but we are really feeling we started out very Saturnian, but by the end of Aquarius, we're going to definitely be feeling the uprising, and those kind of like internal shakings of Jupiter. And that kind of opening the door to what's next, where are we moving towards, what growth are we making, how are we evolving, what are we creating, it's potent, and then it leads us into Pisces season. This is like just perfect timing.
I like the segue. I like having a surreal euphoria. I've been watching Euphoria, but I'm just thinking of, having some sort of surreal interlude to take us into Pisces season. And I think a big party at the end of Aquarius season
is ripe for the making. So, get your guest list out. Long time coming up, right? Oh my goodness. So I guess before we end our Aquarius season segment here, if you had, this is a hard question for a Gemini rising, but if you had one word to recap, or maybe a group of words, but one word to recap Aquarius season, what term would you use?
Oh my gosh, this is the hardest possible question. I maybe recalibration or alchemy is one I said before. Mediation. If I can do a compound noun, again, the deferred gratification. But
yeah, I think that that's yes. I mean, although all those are great, but I think the deferred gratification definitely.
And finding a sort of, maybe I'm just a psycho, but I do find pleasure in deferred gratification. Like there is.
I do too.
Pleasure that you can find in that place. And I think Aquarius season has a real, again, like it feels very transitional. And again, with the Six of Swords, which is so activated, sort of like in the Thoth, I think that card is called Science. And I think that maybe we will be mediating between this more rational sort of scientific method and then the Jupiter and Pisces, which is much more open to just being bewildered by the mysteries of the cosmos, and sort of being more attuned to things that you can't put words to, or subtle energies that you just have to, there's like an experiential reality that, yeah, like finding a balance between that hyper rational sort of planning, conceptualizing energy, but also surrendering to just the divine madness of it all.
Yes, the divine madness, the great unknown, the great mystery, the fact that we
Yeah,
will never know it all. And we have
exactly.
to surrender to that and find joy in the fact that if we did, life would be boring. So,
Gemini rising hates boring,
I
so
know it does. So it's Mars and Gemini. So I feel you on that. But yeah, I like the idea of deferred gratification there. And
take
just
your bitter, take your bitter medicine, and
yeah.
know that it's doing you a lot of good.
I guess the only thing I would say is if I had one word, I maybe forward. I guess that's forward.
I like that.
Forward. Forward. I mean, that's the only, it might take us a second to get
Onward.
there,
Yeah.
but forward, just go forward. Whatever
One
that takes.
one hoof in front of the other.
Yeah.
Like,
Just keep it rolling. Keep it rolling.
but those goats can scale sheer walls. I mean, I
Mhm.
think we can really, whatever's been blocking us, gravity
Yeah.
need not apply, physics need not apply. We can scale some pretty big challenges this Aquarius
You made
season.
me just think of like an XY chart, like graph, and how,
Yes.
like forward, like, we think about forward, we think about driving forward and we're just like straight. But like you said, like the goat that scales, like forward doesn't necessarily have to be along the X line only,
Oh no.
where are you putting that Y, or, like
Exactly. Being
incrementally
very
up.
careful about where you put that Y as
Very,
well.
very good. Yes. And don't try to get too why, because I'm just saying, Saturn will like to be like, oh, you're that ambitious. Okay, well, I don't know. Like that's
Humbling
the
ourselves
idealism.
to natural law is probably a good way forward as well.
Yes. Oh my God. Well, I think we did an excellent treatment on Aquarius season, and lots of I guess fun, intriguing
Yeah,
ideas came up as we were talking, at least for me. So I hope
definitely.
everyone enjoyed it out there. So Stephanie, where can people find you? What do you got going on? What would you like to share?
Well, so you can find me on Instagram at Dark Moon Astrology, and that's underscores between the words. So dark underscore moon underscore astrology. And there's a link in, yeah, the bio of my Instagram to my Substack, which is called, as you might imagine, the Mercury Papers. And I've been not quite as active on my Substack because of all this PhD, work that I'm juggling with full-time work as well. But I'm hoping once the PhD is behind me, I'll be more active again on my Substack. But I do put little shorter sort of glimpses of my Substack posts up on the Instagram. So yeah, that's the
Nice.
Mercury Papers Substack.
Perfect. All
Or
right.
Stephanie Warner. Yeah.
Yes. And it is not the last of Stephanie. We will see her once she's out from under the academia uh
Saturn
crunch.
boot heel. Yeah.
Yes. It will be
Saturn Fletcher.
you do have a lovely climb coming with Jupiter and Saturn as it keeps rising through your chart. So we'll say that, right? She's like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Gonna be straight to work after this podcast.
Yeah. Oh, well, I wish you luck with that.
Thank you so much
Forward.
for having me, and this has been
Yeah,
lovely.
absolutely. So, of course, I'll share Stephanie's information on my own website when hopefully it gets back up. My God, I
Yeah,
forgot right
good luck
before
with
we.
that.
Oh my, I don't know what's going on. Mercury is messing with me hard, especially a full moon in my
Mercury
third
is,
and ninth.
yeah,
Yeah. So hopefully I'll have a website and an email, because my email is with my website at energeticprinciples.com. So wish me luck there. And you can also find me on Instagram at energetic principles, and Facebook too, but Instagram, that seems to be the place. Yeah, so I do have my newsletter that comes out monthly, the Heavenly Winds. So if you'd like to sign up for that, you can do that at my website as well. And I didn't even get to say, I redid my whole website. I fully redid it like a couple days ago and launched it. And so I don't know what's going on with it up there, but hopefully you'll get to see it in its new form, and be able to check that out. And we do have some podcasts coming up with a nodal panel here, that will be out in a couple
I thought
weeks
you were going to say
time.
noodle panel.
It'll be a nude noodle panel on the nodes. And so you're going to want to show up for that. And yeah, I got a nice little steady stream of broadcasts coming. So stay tuned. And really, I know I always ask for people to submit a review wherever you listen to this podcast. And I know that a lot of listeners have done that, and I really am appreciative of that. But if you feel called, it really helps the podcast be seen and helps myself and guests like Stephanie be, rise to in the algorithm. So if you do have the time and the energy, to show appreciation that way, I would, that would be wonderful. And it is Aquarius season coming here, so share it with a friend, spread the good word, and get this broadcast out there. And really, yeah, it was a pleasure talking with you here today, Stephanie. I really enjoyed you as a guest, and I hope you will join me again.
I would love that. Thank you so much. And good luck with your Mercury things.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to need it. So, all right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, as we talked about Aquarius season 2022 here. We wish you all the best of luck during Saturn's reign. And as always, may the stars be with you.